And now for those of you who have a TIG, you too can make yourself a spot welding test tree. Ooh, look at that. At least we know that we can bend our spot welds. Well guys, sorry I have to do this part above the sound of the welder, but a couple things I want to point out. That's the maximum amperage that my machine will do, and that was my setting. I've got a spot weld adjustment on my machine, and when I was doing some tests, I was running at about 2-second spot. Mine's set for about 3, only because there's a delay between when you actually mash this pedal and it actually starts welding. New formula to clarify from the last video from the information I got. What the probable formula on this one is probably going to be, if you take your 2 pieces of metal, put them together, and multiply that by 2. And that was the current that I'm running. Now a little helpful tip, as you can see by this, here we got a piece of tungsten stuck on a piece of steel. What happened here is I thought my tungsten was tight enough in the holder. Apparently it was not. What will happen is if it's not tight, the actual welding process will actually suck the tungsten into the metal, and that's what happened here. Fortunately, I stopped it and I can salvage this. Now the other difference I want to point out between MIG and stick that some people don't seem to be mentioning is cost of consumables. In this case, my TIG welder is now really low on gas, and I haven't done a whole lot of welding with it. I had some other aluminum jobs I did before. But taking into consideration that on my MIG welder over there, I run CO2 gas. On this one, I have to run argon. The problem with argon is it's way, way, way more expensive than CO2, and it doesn't last near as long. So you might want to consider that when you're deciding whether to MIG or TIG spot welds, or any other welding for that matter. Minor modifications since the last video. The actual grooves are about 3/16 of an inch deep now. Makes it better for gas evacuation. Okay, I'd like to explain a little bit of what I think was happening, and hopefully it will help you guys. Okay, so let's do something here. Let's pretend we got a couple of plates mashed together, okay? Now, we've got our spot weld on here. Here's our TIG, okay? What we're doing is we're going to create a bit of a puddle, very short. The higher the current and the lower the time, the quicker it's going to work, okay? That's what we want. We want fusion in there, but the only way we're going to get fusion is if it actually melts. If it's cold, it doesn't stick. There are certain things called cold welding. I haven't figured that out yet. Now, when you've got your nozzle sitting here really close, the problem we have is when we're creating this, we're cleaning fluid, we got gas coming down here. That's gas is going to follow its path of least resistance. So if you're here too long, you're going to blow a hole. And that's a very expensive way of making holes. So, what we do to help alleviate that, and Eastwood actually makes a special cup that allows us to do that. It allows the cup with actual openings and always got pins. I'm not a fan of it only because I can just picture these things breaking off, especially with me working it. But that's why I did mine. I just cut the grooves in the side. Does it here. Grooves in the side does the same thing. Okay, I'd like to show you the major issue I've got to deal with. And this is why the TIG wasn't so great. You can see the penetration from the previous spot welds I did up top. This is my brother's 63 Galaxy. There's going to be more content coming on this one, but just for this case, I want to show you something. The problem I got with the TIG, even with the short, you can see, with the short end on it, trying to get into certain spots, the TIG won't fit. That's the problem with the TIG, okay? So, that's where I was thinking, okay, try to think outside of the box. What can I do if the TIG's not going to work? So that's when I thought, will the MIG work? And at the time, didn't know for sure if it was going to work, but I did try it in a few spots, did some tests, and yeah, it does work. The TIG does work as well, but it doesn't work here. And this is the thing you got to consider when you're working on old cars. We're not working under ideal conditions. Like, this is not acid dip body, okay? It's still on the frame, and I'm kind of crawled underneath this silly thing, okay? You don't work under ideal conditions. This is the reality of working on old cars, okay? Which means sometimes you got to think outside of the box and see if we can come up with some other way of doing something to accomplish the task at hand, okay? Hence the MIG trick as opposed to the TIG. Now, before you internet experts get all in tight, your knickers in a knot again, yeah, I know. There was some spots in here that still need to be ground, and there was some spots that weren't the greatest welded, so I'll have to grind them and fix them. But yeah, this is all going to be ground and fixed. One thing about MIG welding, nice thing is you screw up, you grind it, and you can fix it. So it's shout out to Goozy Fabrication, because his video came in on my feed about 3 weeks ago, and that's when I got the idea of trying the spot weld trick. And yeah, sure enough, it does work. A little bit of practice, mind you. So as you can imagine, after 3 weeks, I've become an expert. No, that does not happen. This is a skill that takes time. I've been doing this for a little while now. But the thing I've learned with stuff that we get off YouTube is it, at its core, may be good information, but let's face it, it's going to take some tweaks because everybody's situation is different. Everybody's piece of equipment is going to be different. But the idea being is that we can actually learn from whatever information we can get. And hopefully you guys get a little bit of entertainment along the way. That would be a bonus. But in the meantime, hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and I would like to thank you for watching. By all means, have fun with this. It's only a hobby.